Hello and welcome back to the North American LCS for TSM versus Cloud9. I'm Clayton Captain Flowers Reigns, joined by Isaac Azael Cummings Bentley, but bad news, buddy. There are no bronzes on the stream today.
That remains to be seen.
To be fair, I guess that is true. We're going to go ahead, though, and take a look at the starting rosters here to kick things off. On the blue side, it's Cloud9 with FLICKR in the top lane, FLICKR in the jungle, Jensen mid lane, Sneaky bottom, Smoothie supporting, and Coach Reaper.
And selecting red side today is going to be TSM. In the top lane, Hanser. In the jungle, Mike Young. Mid lane, Bjergsen. Bot and support going to be Sven and Mithy with Coach Summer.
And you can hear the crowd chant those chants that we all know so well. They're excited to see the teams play today, but yesterday, Cloud9 members, despite picking up a win for themselves, were vocal about their disappointment with how they closed out the game.
Exactly. We're getting towards the later half of the split, the very end. They want to be on playoff form, and Smoothie, Reaper, and Jensen all acknowledge they should have been able to close out the game sooner. This is a team that has their sights set on a playoff bye, and they are not happy with just any win. They want to be dominant, and they want to be looking on point.
And if you look over at what the TSM players' Twitter looks like, they were much more happy about the way they won yesterday, especially in sort of that revenge game against Liquid after they lost to them earlier on the split.
Yeah, definitely so. I mean, they had a tougher opponent. The team has been looking progressively better, and now they're going to have their toughest challenge of the remaining schedule against C9. You know, this is going to be a very tough team, and they still have the potential to get knocked out of playoffs, so they need to pick up as many wins as possible. And a win here could bring some peace to Reginald, who expressed how nervous he was that his team might not make the playoffs. Yesterday on the lounge stream, he said he's never been more worried about his team being able to clinch it.
I mean, when you think about TSM, when you think about this team and what this org has been in the North American LCS in the past, they've never missed a final, let alone the playoffs themselves.
Yeah.
So that is one hell of a reputation to live up to, but they got to get through one of their old rivals in Cloud9 here today if they want to keep that dream going, keep that climb continuing. We'll see if they can do it as we get into Champion Select. Cloud9 deciding to ban away the Rise first. TSM will answer with a purple champion of their own, getting the Skarner off the board.
And while Cloud9 still is near the top of the tables, has been a very strong team this split, you know, TSM has been getting better and better, and Cloud9 have picked up almost all of their losses recently. 3 of their 4 losses are in the last 6 games, so this is a team on a somewhat downward trend. They are still looking very strong, but they have been more vulnerable in the second half of the split.
Which makes sense why we heard those opinions expressed that we did from the Cloud9 players and from their coach yesterday after their win. It's not just about winning, it's about making sure you feel good about that win, you feel confident about that win, especially as playoffs draw ever closer, as the postseason quickly approaches us. You've got to be in top form if you want to contest and really put on a show there, as we see Galio and Gangplank banned out by C9, TSM banning the Xayah away, that 80 carry that we've seen so much of in recent days.
Yeah, Stion's still on the table here. It'll be interesting to see if that gets taken away. That is such a high presence champion on 8.4. You know, it's actually banned in 70% of games on 8.4, so a little surprised to see that go through, but could be available here for Hanser if he wants to grab that up second rotation. Definitely the best tank on the patch, in my opinion. Does not really have very many bad matchups. Even if you're getting a Gnar or something picked into it, it's still pretty good in lane. There are answers, but no real counter to that sort of a champion.
Well, the start of the draft will go the way of Cloud9, and that one will be Kha'Zix picked up for them, really wanting to get one of those aggressive type of junglers that can carry from that playmaking role. We'll see what FLICKR can do on that one this game. TSM saying, all right, the Xayah's banned away. We made sure of that. They picked the Varus, another strong laning champion, to go bottom.
It definitely has been a really strong laning champion, but it's interesting to see how it's performing actually a lot worse on 8.4 than it had been in the past. You know, it's down like a 37% win rate on this patch in professional play, and while it's not the most large sample of games, you can't take too much from that. I think part of it is to do with the fact that there's been more priority on heavy lane picks like the Caitlyn, like the Xayah Rakan, and these sorts of things, and Varus is not as easily able to bully those champions as he was something like the Tristana or the Kog'Maw that had been coming out much more frequently in the past.
All right, TSM will also pick up the Sejuani there for themselves in the jungle. That's going to go up against the Kha'Zix. That's FLICKR. Cloud9 deciding they want to go with Azir now, blind picking the mid laner for Jensen.
And this is a very strong blind pick. It's going to be the Tristana down there, speak of the devil, for for Sneaky, so Sven will have a pretty nice lane matchup there. And this does give pretty good opportunity for TSM to get the double solo lane counter pick. You can pick Bjergsen's mid laner right here. You already know that it's going to be the Azir, so there's Bjergsen's answer. Then it sets them up. It has to be a blind top laner for Licorice. Haunter can also counterpick that as the last pick in the second round, so definitely some potential there for TSM to get solo lane advantages, which is traditionally where a lot of their strength has come from.
And that feels great in the draft, being able to get that edge just by being set up for that opportunity by what your opponents have decided, how they've decided, I should say, to play this one out. Let's see how the teams want to address the second part of the bans here. Cloud9 still needing to pick top laner and support. TSM still needing to pick top laner and support. So expect, of course, those bans to be focused only on those two roles. TSM getting rid of the Gnar.
Yeah, Gnar is a great blind pick. Wouldn't be surprised to see TSM, if they think Licorice will play it, also ban out the Sion, ban out what is probably two of the absolute safest blind picks, and then make it so Haunter really can have an advantageous 1v1. Some people are going to have concerns about things like Cho'Gath there as well. I'm of the opinion that Cho'Gath can be answered pretty well by a Trundle, but that is kind of dependent upon how you want to actually play out the game, what sort of a style Haunter wants to go for. It's also worth noting that Alistar is available here still for Smoothie or for Mithy. It has been Smoothie's most successful and most played champion this split. He has been extremely dominant, such a fantastic roamer on that champion, and TSM as a result is going to take it away.
The champion just synergizes so well with the way Smoothie plays League of Legends, the way he facilitates his team doing what they need to do to bring those win conditions online. Not surprised to see TSM remove that one here at all. One more ban to go for Cloud9, though, before we get back into the picks and see how TSM wants to start off this second half of the draft. And it looks like Cloud9 are going to go ahead and bring themselves yet another support ban in there, getting rid of the TK.
Yeah, so Tahm Kench, the Alistar, the Braum, all off the table there. So a lot of tank support bans. There are still other options, obviously, here. Things like the Taric can be brought out, but those are a lot of the most played champions that are now not available there for Mithy. He has brought out Rakan once, but you're not going to see that with Zygon, and you're going to have to find out what his answer is going to be.
Okay.
The Thresh, and this gives Smoothie an opportunity to actually pick more heavily for lane here with something like a Morgana. Perhaps we've been seeing more Morgana and is a pretty good lane answer there to the Thresh. Obviously, he could just go for something a bit more standard like the Taric if you want more kind of a tanky answer. Blitz, we have seen him picking a Thresh before and does offer a lot of playmaking, and this is a very light team on frontline for C9, so it's looking like it's just going to be the Blitz.
Well, a couple more seconds before we see that lock in or not. And there you go, Blitzcrank. Locked in for Smoothie and Cloud9. Who needs a front line? They're just going to look to pick all the time, find those opportunities, catch people out of position.
I mean, there's a lot of confidence to pick that blitz for Smoothie, but he knows he can pull it off. Roaming champion. It's also a pretty nice pick specifically into TSM's comp here when you see two relatively low mobility carries. This is not an Ezreal, this is not an Azir, someone who really has those move blocks who can dodge away. It's a Varus and a Syndra who are going to be pretty susceptible. Shen will be the answer as the blind pick. That's going to give us some more playmaking. You can stand united in on top of the Kazakhs if he is initiating on the Blitzcrank, if he is initiating. Even, the Tristana and the Azir can go forward, so a lot of options there. We're going to have to find out what Haunter's answer will be. Not expecting it to be the Volibear, even though it is actually pretty strong on 8.4. We'll have to see if he's going to be willing to lock it in. The Sion would make a lot of sense as it's pretty rare to see it this far down in the draft, but this is not what I would consider a lane counter by any means. I think Shen can actually match up pretty well against the Sion. Sion is a very strong team fighter, though. Does obviously build pretty naturally into things like the Banner of Command that people are really prioritizing on this patch, and it's honestly just such a pain to deal with because he's so tanky, has such high base stats, and really tough to push out a lane in any matchup.
I mean, the front line on TSM's composition this game, when you've got Sejuani and Sion as those two big meatballs in front of the carries, there's a lot on Smoothie this game to make sure those pulls find the right targets. If you bring Sejuani and Sion into the entirety of the team, you're just doing them a favor.
Yeah, certainly so, unless you are ahead, right? And if you are very ahead, sometimes hooking in the tank is all you need to do because then you can focus them down. But definitely a more standard type composition here from TSM. Two very strong tanks. The Thresh is kind of a pseudo tank. Really only one pure tank on the side of C9. And, Kazakhs could have a lot of trouble getting involved in these sorts of fights with Thresh there to peel, with the Flay, with the knockbacks from Bjergsen on the Syndra, as well as two tanks to get through.
But it's been scaring, though, on this Kazakhs. I mean, with the removal of Tracker's Knife, with that less vision being available throughout the course of the game, and especially early on. We've seen some creative pathing from this guy before this split, right? We've seen him find some opportunities to really make plays happen through some inventive ways of moving around the jungle. And if he can get that going with this game, especially on a pick like Kha'Zix, that could get things going for Cloud9, put him in that spot you're talking about, where you're far enough ahead to make the pulls onto the tanks even.
And especially early on. I mean, you're definitely going to have the advantage over a Sejuani in the early levels. You really want to see him getting out there on the map, being proactive, invading the Sejuani, pushing her out of her jungle, or getting involved in some of these lanes, because Blitz has fantastic gank assist, as does Shen, and if you can put those lanes ahead, you can certainly find some leads.
All right, amidst the chant of the crowd, the teams are out onto the rift. Cloud9 with that 5-man mid, seeing maybe if TSM would rush out to meet him and you could get a pull, but I don't think that's going to be happening today. Azael, Cloud9 just spreading up.
The crowd is pumped, man. It's feeling like playoffs already.
This is what is one of the funnest parts about having two of the biggest names in the North American LCS go head-to-head like that. You get to see exactly how passionate the fan bases are and how they're going to collide the same way that the teams are.
And it's one of the biggest rivalries in NALCS, right? These are two of the teams that have taken down multiple championships, have been fighting for so long. And even on Twitter, you're seeing the owners getting involved.
Oh,
Jack
yeah.
has been firing shots left and right at Reggie, at Steve. And all
Jack's
these guys
getting spicy all split long.
I know. They want their teams to dominate.
And that's good to see, too. I love seeing everybody get involved like that. They know what's on the line here. I mean, we've got, what is it, so many different banners hanging up in the background here of the teams that have won NALCS splits in the past. And there's 3 different team emblems on those banners. Only 3 teams have won. 2 of them are in this game right now. Both these sides know exactly what their organization, what their brand has been capable of in the past. They want to live up to that name, and especially up against one of those rivals. Like you said, it's important to prove that you're still among the top dogs. No matter what year it is, no matter what split it is, no matter what patch it is, proving that dominance goes a long way. As everybody's into the lanes now, you're going to see junglers starting off on opposite ends of the map, both around their blue buffs. So that means after you have that level 3 point, after you've got the double buffs up and running, they're going to be on opposite spots.
Pretty interested to see if Svenskeren decides to do anything super aggressive, like invading towards the red. It does not look like he's going to try to do that, but you can see Mike Young is actually kind of paying some credence to the fact that that is possible, and he's actually doing a full bot side clear. So this is about as safe as you can possibly get if you're worried that the Kha'Zix could be starting at blue and then rushing straight to your red. This is the sort of path you might want to do to avoid that. So definitely showing a lot of respect to that early game power here from Svenskeren.
And Cloud9, you can see what's on the line for them this game. It's not just about bragging rights. It's not just about glory in a rivalry matchup against TSM. If they win here, they lock in a playoff bye. They punch their ticket. They've already found their way into playoffs, but they punch their ticket directly into the semifinals with a win over TSM here.
Yeah, which would be a really big deal. I mean, everyone had kind of thought it was all but locked up there for Cloud9, for Echo Fox at the top of the table to get their buys. Clutch has really kind of made a push towards the end of this split, and certainly still potential for them to take that spot away from a team if they start slipping. If Cloud9 drops a couple of games, they could find themselves having to play in the quarterfinals, which is really not where they want to be.
Right, we've seen Echo Fox drop a couple of games. We've seen Clutch start to win, and like you said, Cloud9, 11-4 so far on Spring Split, but 3 of those losses in the past 6 games means this is a team that wants to make sure, with only 3 games left to play in the split, including this one, they finish strong. Yeah,
you want to be building that confidence. You want to be constantly improving throughout the split, and picking up wins in the later stages is really big towards building that confidence in, and no matter who your matchup is, feeling that you will be the ones that are favored, the ones that take them down.
I mean, the names on Cloud9 too, I mean, honestly on both teams, but you got Sneaky, you've got Jensen, you've got these guys who have been in these kinds of situations before where pressure's on. There's a lot that you could potentially win here by taking down that enemy nexus, so these guys are no strangers to these types of situations.
Definitely not, and it's also been an interesting story here, watching how FLICKR and Mike Young has performed, and so much pressure on these guys coming into these big organizations, being expected to perform from the word go, and especially for me, FLICKR has really risen to that challenge, has really been a very dominant top laner in a cast in NALCS that has some of the best top laners in the world. He has more than kind of answered those questions, and Mike Young has been steadily improving throughout the split. For me, has not yet lived up to those expectations, but is definitely improving. Is surrounded by these veterans, and
nobody saw that.
Hate to see that.
No, nobody saw that. Nobody saw that. I don't know what you're talking about. How's that on cooldown?
Don't worry.
We've all been there.
Sejuani isn't in the Baron pit.
That's like the jungling code of honor. You just everybody knows that happens to all of us now and again. You try to get over the wall and it doesn't happen. So you let it go, man. Everybody gets one.
Yeah, you get one. We'll give you one.
All right. Nobody knows what we're even talking about at this point. Down in bot lane, that's what we're looking at now. As you can see, the farm pretty close between these guys. Sven's Varus having a slight lead in terms of racking up those minions, but across the board, everybody's farming up about the same speed. You can see the gold between the teams very even right now. Sometimes early on in a game, you can see a gold disparity start to build up for a couple hundred if one side really takes control of one of the lanes, but that's just not the story so far this game.
Definitely has not been. You can see LCS trading pretty well up there on the top lane, and really, you are very strong in these tank matchups as a Shen. You know, having the parry zone, having the ability for that Q pull through for not only the attack speed but the percentage HP damage is very, very big. And interesting to see that Jensen has not gone back to base yet, whereas Bjergsen has already gone back, already picked up his tier and stacking that up.
Bjergsen getting a lot of damage down to Jensen now, who has to try to get away from that one. I mean, he's down to 100 HP, and you saw on the side of your screen pop up there, Bjergsen is 30-7 wins and losses in his NALCS Syndra play. An absolutely incredible win rate on this champion. Has demonstrated mastery over it time and time again. And Jensen, a very, very powerful player in his own right. I mean, these two, Azael, when you're talking about some of the best in NALCS, it's for the longest time always been Jensen and Bjergsen, who's the king of mid lane, who rightly gets to wear that crown. And every single time you get to see these guys go head-to-head, you know it's going to be a good one.
Yeah, you definitely do. And Svenskeren off on the smite there. It's going to go over to Mike Young, and that's partially due to the control that Bjergsen now has in mid lane. He had the counter pick, so to speak. He got that second pick after Jensen, and Jensen is kind of getting bullied a little bit. The better base timing was there from Bjergsen. Really surprised that Jensen still is electing to not go back to base, but he does not want to fall behind in experience, does not want to fall behind in farm, and is opting to kind of play it a little bit more risky because of that. And if Bjergsen thinks he's based, then he will complete his, and yeah, Jensen will be able to farm up this wave, and then should be able to look to go back after that. But it is pretty interesting because although Syndra is by many considered somewhat of a lane counter to Azir, Azir's push is so strong that if you're able to actually establish your position in lane and really, get that shove constantly going, you can get to a stage where Syndra doesn't actually get to interact with you at all, and then the lane counter kind of goes out the window.
Worth pointing out as well, you can see Jensen going back, making that first buy now, gets a second Dorian's ring, but also straight into the Mercury Treads rush, especially knowing he's dealing with a CC-heavy jungler like that Sejuani, sets him up to avoid the ganks, and I mean, the magic resist is going to be helpful against some of that burst.
Yeah, it makes a lot of sense for the magic resist. It's obviously, reduction on the scatter of the weak. It's thinking, okay, well, who else could come to my lane? Well, Thresh, that's a lot of CC if he roams up. The Sejuani, lots of CC there. So you're getting a lot out of those Merc Treads for sure. And just the movement speed against a skill shot-based champion, yeah. And especially when you're Jensen, who is probably the best, in my opinion, at these kind of little micro sidesteps and dodging out in skill shots. He's going to be able to utilize that move speed better than most.
All right, you can see that blue buff being donated over to Jensen here now to give him some extra lane control. Svenskeren also level 6 on the Kha'Zix, so has that first evolution. Pretty much always going to be going for the active camouflage in this day and age, the extra mobility around the map, as well as the ability to move unseen over the wards. I mean, with the removal of Tracker's Knife, there's even less wards around, so it becomes that much easier to move around the map stealthily.
And you rely more on pink wards, and Kha'Zix does not really care about pink wards with his Evolve. You can actually walk out of a brush through a pink ward and not be spotted. He will come into the invis there, so that's unfortunate there, but you see that illustrated, right? You're not actually spotted, so it's one of the things that adds even more power on this patch, and definitely is someone who loves to duel up against opposing junglers when you can find the right opportunity. Things up on the top side, though, it's looking like the early Tiamat for FLICKR, and I'm going to be interested to see if he decides to actually try to complete that straight up, or if he's just going to go Tiamat into tank, as is pretty common. But a 4-man play, potentially 5-man play coming here on the bot side, as Stand United is available, and they're behind the turret. This could surely be a first blood here for C9.
Svenskeren goes in. There's you Stand United onto the Kha'Zix. We're going to make the move. Shurima shuffle on to 2. TSM is in some trouble. Cloud9's making it a double, baby, and they are on the board. First blood over to C9 in style.
That was so well executed by C9. Perfect timing as the main wave is crashing. 5-man bot. The beautiful Shurima shuffle there from Jensen. They get 2 kills. They will get the first turret, and while they're losing some gold in the solo lanes here, this was such a good play.
Cloud9 decides to go for that opportunity, and they make it sing. Very well orchestrated by the entirety of the team. Like you said, you're losing some damage, but at the cost of a play like this, you can take a couple hits on your turrets.
I mean, this is just beautiful. Right in, Jensen, Svenskeren. You see how Svenskeren is going not towards his opponents, but going behind his opponents, knowing that the Shen is going to come through. Only way they get out is if they get behind the Kazakhs. He cuts them off. Jensen there for the Shurima Shuffle, pushing them in, securing a couple kills, and that is such a good start for C9, especially here on the bottom side of the map. You know, getting down that turret means Blitz is unlocked. You see Smoothie already out on the map with Moby Boots. Tristana kind of gets through some of the more awkward early stages of her lane, and now this is going to get a lot scarier very quickly for TSM, because they're always going to have to be wondering, where is Smoothie, where is the Blitz, is he coming mid, is he coming to invade the jungle? And you can see all the vision put up on TSM's topside jungle is they're going to lane swap and they're going to look to pressure another turret.
And when you're pressuring turrets, a champion like Tristana is exactly what you want to see. You've got something that's especially adept at knocking down these objectives. And for Cloud9, if you can snowball that early lead into being able to knock down 2 or 3 of them even at a time, you can get yourself to that point where Blitz and Kazakhs together roaming around the map, a force to be reckoned with.
Definitely so. And Kazakhs up here on the top side of the map. So Sven, you know, looking to shut down any potential ganks, wants to be in position for a counter gank, and the hook in.
All right, there you go. Smoothie starting things off. Mithy might be in some trouble here. Barely going to be walking away. A little bit more damage. Might be able to do it, but it's Smoothie who goes down to Sven. It's 1 for 1, but TSM will still be able to find the moves 2 versus 3.
Yeah, nicely done there. Trading kills in the 2 versus 3. Really good job by Sven and Mithy holding Smoothie in turret range for so long, pulling him in there and able to kind of trade back 1 kill, but it's Sven who picks up the kill for TSM, so they're going to be feeling pretty happy about where the gold was allocated after that fight.
Well done by TSM handling that dive, but at the same time, you got to look at Cloud9 and applaud them for wanting to continue to apply that pressure. They land the hook onto Mithy. They still want to make those plays, and that's what I want to see from both teams in one of these matches that can mean so much as a win for either one.
Exactly.
8 weeks into the split.
And it's aggressive play you want to see. With Blitz and Kazakhs, you don't want to be sitting back. But look at this. The hook was actually landed on Smoothie as he hits it onto Mithy. The box, the flay back in, and the snipe there is from Sven, and that is the red smite plus red buff. It looked like burning him down, so they do trade 1 kill back. And you can see Svenskeren is out to a really good start. He has his Moby Boots. He has his Warrior already completed, and a couple kills early on that Kazakhs can be more potential to continually snowball the game and really get aggressive.
And that's exactly what you were talking about back in Champion Select, right? Sejuani, especially early on against Kazakhs, that's not something where Mike Young ever really wants to run into him one-on-one. That's not a situation where Mike Young feels like he's got control over those kind of neutral situations. And Svenskeren playing the map very well around that kind of knowledge, as TSM now has themselves set up onto Shelly here. Looking to grab a neutral objective for their team, for themselves. Seeing if maybe they can use that to grab a turret a little bit later on. Looks like Cloud9 won't contest this one. Looks to allow that one to go right on over to TSM. Mike Young will pick it up as the bottom lane heads back top side. Sneaky and Smoothie walking away from that.
Yeah, honestly, very well done from TSM. They get vision control in the topside river. They know that Kazakhs is not up there just yet. He was doing a bottom side path, so they're able to just start up the Rift Herald, knock that down pretty easily, and it's a good trade back of objectives. And with the investment in double early Moby Boots here for C9, you need to see them continually be proactive. You want to see them moving around the map. You want to see them utilizing that and making plays. Because that is where a lot of their early gold lead has gone, into this mobility, into this kind of playmaking.
And of course, if you don't succeed in continuing that snowball, then that gold sink just becomes irrelevant.
Yep.
If you get into a full 5-on-5 fight with mobility boots, they're not going to be doing a whole lot, considering they'll be deactivated the entire time, and all of a sudden that lead is, well, it's not so evident anymore. Cloud9 still going to be looking for those opportunities wherever they can find them. 1,500 gold up. Sneaky continuing to farm up here in the top side on the Trist. He has that first item. He has the static shiv. He has a BF sword. But I want to reiterate what we always talk about with your Tristanas and your Caitlyn's and things like Xayah even. If you're going crit, it's all about that 3-item power spike. He's fine just keeping things on cruise control until then.
Yeah, definitely the case. And it is a good position to be in here as Sneaky, because you do not want to be sitting on, 1 item or even pieces in the really bad games where Varus already has Rageblade, because Varus's 1 completed item is much better than yours. They are going to push up, and it looks like TSM has just elected to give up this turret. It is very low. They don't feel that they can defend it. And I think it's a pretty good choice when it's a low HP turret. You know Stand United is available. You don't want to see that same sort of 5-man play happen again. But from C9 side, now that Stand United is available, you want them to start being proactive. And you've knocked down both outers in top and bot. Now it's maybe time to look towards making a play on Bjergsen here in the mid lane. You know, if you can come over the wall with the Blitz, with this Kha'Zix and the Stand United coming in there and knock down Syndra and finish off the last outer, that can give you really full map control.
And speaking of controlling the map, I like what we're seeing on our screen right now. Cloud9 recognizing they have some of those outers down, moving through the enemy jungle, putting down the deeper vision, especially with a pick composition. That vision is going to be so critical for these guys, making sure they can set those picks up.
It's also pretty interesting CC9 actually deciding to give the red buff over to FLICKR there to help him out in that 1v1. You know, he has built for more of a kind of 1v1 build here, rushing the full Titanic and going to be having more heavy wave clear. Not going to be able to really fight up against the bot lane, plus he knows that Mike Young could be down here on the bottom side of the map, so doesn't want to risk dying. They will sacrifice that turret, but he should be able to clear this out pretty easily, and if he can match up against Sion during that red buff, it will definitely give him an advantage.
I like TSM's neutral game objective here. They got the Rift Herald earlier. They successfully used it to take the bottom lane tier 1. Now they grab the Ocean Drake for themselves. So despite the fact that they might be down in overall map pressure, not having the same amount of turrets their opponents have, they're still not conceding the map. They're making plays. They're finding those ways to get themselves some gains elsewhere.
And honestly, they have the easier to execute comp, right? You know, if you're confident that in a 5v5 you can execute on your comp more easily, then it's okay to sit back sometimes and wait and, you know, and just try to trade and do as they are doing, because they have multiple tanks in the front line, you know, a couple backliners to be protected, and that is so much easier to execute on than high variance champions like the Kha'Zix, like the Blitzcrank, who can be very high highs and very low lows.
TSM will tie things up 2-2 in turret count. They still find themselves down a couple of thousand gold thanks to the kills and the farm advantage being built up in a couple of different spots there by the side of Cloud9. You can see slight CS leads in the top lane, in the bottom lane. The Sion roar comes out, but did Hunter hit the Nexus?
We might need a little bit of a replay on that one. But remember, to be fair, you get one.
Everybody, that's a jungling rule. Is that a jungling?
That's not a top lane rule?
No, that's a jungling rule.
Okay.
Top lane Sion, man, you gotta make sure.
Hey, wait, I'm a top laner. You get one.
No, okay, all right.
You get one.
All right, here we go. Replay cam.
All right.
Looking
to zoom in.
Oh.
Did he just
he hit
canceled it or something?
I think there's a weird. Maybe
sure
the clipping on the wall is really weird because it like sticks out a little bit there.
I don't know if it's one of those things where you can actually. I've not played a lot of Sion myself, so I'm not sure if that's a double tap and you can actually insta cancel it or what happened there. But either way,
it was a short trip he made.
Yep.
As TSM makes a catch now onto Smoothie, forces out the flash from him so he can get himself away, but with the support still alive, Cloud9 will pressure here onto the mid lane tier 1, looking to get that last outer turret. TSM ready and waiting though. They'll protect that rather easily, still continuing to keep it alive with about 2/3 HP.
Definitely what you want to see though. If Sneaky can get a little bit of alone time on this turret, he will be able to knock it down very quickly, especially in conjunction there with Jensen with that Azir. Already has his Nashers done. That's going to be a lot of attack speed and kind of help him out with that sieging power. Pretty interesting to see how this matchup is kind of panning out. You know, FLICKR is able to get a little bit ahead in farm. I do think that the grass plus his build is going to help him out pretty heavily in that 1v1. Grass was just so strong for trading, and you know the Titanic Hydra especially works incredibly well with your Q pass-through because you're getting the bonus damage on those autos with the increased attack speed that you get from pulling your Q through your opponent, and that's one of the things that really does feel pretty good in those tank versus tank matchups.
Plus it gives you so much mixed damage, right? I mean, the Q is going to be percent HP magic damage. The Titanic Hydra giving you AD, the on-hit effect, also physical damage being applied through that. So when your opponent can't effectively itemize one type of defense against you, it makes it easier to have some of that damage stick, even if you're still going to have an overall difficult job. Svenskeren finding himself caught out. Bjergsen just deletes him.
Hit him with the gameplay. The Syndra, haven't seen that one in a while. Stacking orbs, and he must have just known he was coming. Hits him with the Scatter of the Week out of Invis, it looked like, and just a clean 100-0 pretty much. Sven just got deleted.
That was a great read by Bjergsen, and he ends up walking away 300 gold richer for it. 216 CS, 19 minutes into the game, 1-0-0 now. Sorcerer's Shoes, his only completed item alongside that Seraph's Embrace, and We've talked since the mid lane itemization changes about how the big winners feel to be those Archangels users, and Syndra more than happy to have that item going.
Yeah, definitely so. I was a little bit surprised, I have to say, though, that Syndra did not end up being more of a Luden's champ. And that, to me, kind of speaks to the strength just of this item. Because the combination of taking a defensive summoner like Heal plus Archangels is essentially giving you 2 defensive summoners, and there was. He did spot him on the ward before he actually went into the bush. So he just assesses out that timing, assumes that he is there, hits the Scatter of the Weak, and just well played by Bjergsen, honestly. Good timing on that, and that's what can happen. Syndra just camping a brush in a couple different locations, waiting to look for one of those picks.
We talk about, well, I guess I should say we joke about hitting him with the gameplay button, but the game sense there was exactly where it needed to be, recognizing that's where the Kha'Zix is coming out.
And the timing.
Yeah,
right?
The timing. He set up the play exactly the way he needed to. He got the stun, which of course gave him the Kha'Zix on a silver platter for the R button. So,
yeah.
Cloud9, 20 minutes into the game, Baron's up. They're hanging around the pit, dropping down some vision, clearing out some of that that's being dropped by TSM. Smoothie wants to get down another ward here. Mike Young deciding to sweep that away as FLICKR and Hauntzer will continue to be locked in their mortal battle of split push. Sejuani ult not finding the mark this time. They wanted to go for Smoothie because they recognized he didn't have the flash, considering he spent it the last time they caught him out. Mithy, hook over the wall, finds his way onto Jensen, who pops the cleanse to get away from it, but over the wall goes Mithy thanks to the pull. Instead, he's going to be in the middle of 3. It's Smoothie, who may have this turned around. Svenskeren off the side, can't find the kill onto Mithy, and TSM's going to make that one 1-0.
Yeah, they decide to not actually TP and LCKR. He did use the Stand United, but I guess it got interrupted before he's able to come through, or just died straight through it. But TSM, they're posturing around Baron here. It is post 20 minutes. This would be a risky one to go for. They are just going to go back to base, take their 1 kill, and head back with that.
It's post 20 minutes, and we're 200 gold apart between these two teams that have been so historically evenly matched. And that just means we're hopefully in for a long, bloody one. It'll be a lot of fun. Exactly the way you want to see them play out here in week number 8. Let's take a look at how they managed to get this fight, though.
Yeah, so it's C9 around Baron looking to establish the vision control. They see the blitz. They decide to go straight over onto him. And, you know, Smoothie thinks that he can kind of turn this around here onto Mithy. They see the cleanse. They know someone is over the wall. They're going to be able to hit the hook onto Mithy. But Mithy says, I have more members here. So he just goes forward, hits the play, pulls in the box, and they're able to actually knock down Smoothie because TSM just had more men in position. Had Svenskeren been there, that would have been a dead thresh, but he was not.
And let's echo back to what we talked about in Champion Select, because I mentioned specifically the Sejuani and the Sion being the ones that you don't want to pull because you're just doing them a favor unless you're far enough ahead. And in this case, it was the Thresh that fell into that same category. I mean, they thought they had the play, but in reality, they just gave Mithy the opportunity to be exactly where he needed to be. And you've got to be so careful about that because
definitely do.
Can put you in a really rough spot if you're Cloud9.
But at the same time, they were incredibly close to bursting him down. If you had an extra member or two there, they might have been able to take down that kill. TSM now trying to force out the TP from LCKR because there was a TP disadvantage. This is their answer to that, denying Cloud9 the ability to set up a play. They see it now, the TP is forced, and we may get a fight.
TP coming in, Baron down to 4K as TSM backs away from it. Sion ulti pop, doesn't really find anything with it. Gonna be taunted up on the front line, pulled right back into the back so C9 can continue the DPS. That's the kind of pull you're looking for, exactly what the doctor ordered for Cloud9.
Yeah, I mean, you say you don't want to pull that Sion, but when you hit the taunt, when you're putting him that much damage, they block the Lantern, then pull him back in. He's so separated from the team, they're able to focus him down. So despite the fact that it's TSM initiating that play, because of the global disadvantage, it's C9 that come out ahead. And that was kind of one of the unspoken advantages that C9 did get, despite the fact in the previous play Smoothie died. You know, there was the TP used from Hauntzer, and it was only the Stand United used from LCKR. So with Shen, you get 2, and that was their second.
Now TSM has to make sure they don't fall into the same traps that Cloud9's going to be falling in against them. Both these teams have tried to make moves back and forth throughout this game, and both have been successful at punishing the other when it's not as crisp as it has to be.
Exactly, and you really do have to be very, very careful about these fights. The game is on a razor's edge, and if anyone loses a fight too heavily, then that'll be Barrett going over to their opponents, and that really can be the difference between winning and losing here. And here it is one more time. So again, trying to force out that TP from LCKR, getting him to come down and join. And Hauntzer, honestly, just with a straight-up whiff on the Sion ult, that was not very close. And LCKR taunting him in, the carry's focusing him. And when he's taking that much damage, they pull him back. And look at the ward. The ward dropped there by Smoothie onto the lantern so that he could not click it. So Haunter not able to click because of the ward, tries to flash to get away, still goes down. And that's just a really heads-up play there from Smoothie, who has been performing so well this split for C9.
I mean, so many different games, he's been the hero of the day, right? There's so many different Cloud9 victories we've seen over the course of this spring that has been about Smoothie making the plays on the Alistar, Smoothie making the right rotations at the right time and just setting things up and being that trigger pull that this team needs in order to get things going. And here again against TSM, he's stepping up.
Yeah, and that's the difference between getting that kill or not, very likely. And as a result, you can see FLICKR has the push advantage in the side lane. Haunter has to go back to answer that. Now C9 has map advantage because they have Stand United and Haunter cannot join. This means TSM has to give up vision control around Baron. This means they have to seed the play in really almost any scenario. Unless you can catch out Sneaky completely and burst him down or something before Shen can come through, you don't get to go for any plays.
And that's the name of the game now for TSM, is finding some way to make those plays. Bjergsen again, dialing it in and finds Svenskeren.
And Haunter has actually roamed down, so FLICKR needs to start hoping it over here. He has no TP. Bjergsen, again, scatters the weak, knocks Sven out of the stealth, and they're going to start up Baron. This is a jungler to no jungler. The mid lane may go down here for TSM. C9 needs to try to get over here and prevent this Baron from being taken. It is still 4v5, both carries on the table. This is still very risky for TSM.
TSM wanting to get this if they can. Instead, it's going to be starting off now. Both supports under fire. Smoothie barely walking himself away. Sven grabbing the kill onto him as Mithy will slightly survive the encounter. Baron to 1K. Mike Young secures it for TSM. And Cloud9's got no way to put up a fight.
Yeah, nicely done there by TSM. The pick from Bjergsen, starting it all, taking down Svenskeren means they can just go over to the Baron and again, barely not enough damage to take down Mithy. Smoothie falls. It is a 3v5, and from that point, there's no hope of C9 stopping it. They will get some smaller objectives, though. They get the mid lane turret, they get the Ocean Dragon, and it's still very close.
This is twice now that Bjergsen has managed to isolate and take down his former teammate and jungler from the previous iteration of TSM. The first time, yeah, it was just a kill. It was $300 in his back pocket, feels good. Second time, sets his team up for the Baron. Let's take a look at how it happened here again.
And honestly, Sven gave it away with that previous ward that he dropped over the wall to the red buff. No one from his team is there except him. When you ward over the wall, you're saying, hey, here I am. They know where everyone else is. They know that it's just Kha'Zix, and Kha'Zix is incredibly squishy, so honestly, it's definitely some criticism can be kind of levied there towards Svenskeren, who did kind of give them the hint they needed to take him down, but it's a really good job by Bjergsen to capitalize on that mistake.
And now that TSM is baroned up 27 minutes into the game, now they've got themselves the opportunity to push up and really just pull this game all the way to their court. Let's see what they can do with those baroned up banner minions. Get the count ready, Azael. Doesn't even need 3.
Take a little break, you know, the crowd takes over for us, feels pretty good.
Crowd's doing your job for you, feels good, man.
It's about how they do it too well, because then
then they take our job, then we feel pretty bad, but TSM still trying to continue this push. They will lose that super-powered minion. Cloud9 trying to defend this the best they can. Haunter will set up shop in the mid lane outside that tier 2, while the rest of TSM continues pushing for bottom lane inhib.
And C9 needs to clear these waves pretty aggressively. They're trying to just knock down those minions. Without a banner, they should be okay unless someone does get hooked in or pulled out. We'll see. Team's kind of looking to somewhat collapse on Haunter, but Haunter is just looking to go and group back up with the team, and they're trying to make a concerted 5-man push to really put pressure on this turret. So they want to bring the takedown, who can absorb more of the shots, who can step forward and kind of body block there, force Sven and Bjergsen to get damage forward. And look at Haunter moving forward, trying to create space for his carries.
Nice pull. Smoothie able to make it onto Mithy, but instead going to be bursted down by Bjergsen. C9 loses 1 member, almost about to lose 2. Sneaky's going to be chain CC'd right down. A double kill for TSM's mid lane, make it 3 for the side of TSM as they break the base wide open. Grab themselves inhibitor turret number 1. The inhib will follow shortly thereafter. Jensen hangs around, tries to put up a bit of a fight, but it looks like it won't be enough. couple more hits to take that one down will do it. TSM, grab inhib number 1, 29.
They're actually just looking to end the game here, Flowers. There's 24 seconds on Sneaky. They're looking to have a 3:30-minute victory here. Make a statement.
Jensen barely gets himself away from that one, having to pop the cleanse to evade the hook. Mythy dials in that CC once more, gonna be pulled back. Smoothie trying to make those hero plays, find the defense. FLICKR on the side.
Turret's
also
gone.
looking to provide the damage with those missiles. Bjergsen has to walk out from this one, taken very low. FLICKR jumps over the wall. TSM will not find the Nexus yet.
But FLICKR can continue to slow them. They have TP here on LCYR and a very deep pink ward in the bottom lane. They can continue to chase this and try to corral them in if they want to look for a play, but it looks as though C9 has called it off. They will back out, but it is both Nexus turrets down and C9 just barely hanging on in this game.
We were 200 gold apart at 20 minutes. At 30 minutes, TSM is knocking on the door to the Nexus because of a single pick that led to a Baron. You said razor's edge to describe this game before, Azale, and I don't think there was a better way to say it.
I mean, it's the smallest differences here that are making it. And again, Mythy gets hooked in by Smoothie, but he is tanky enough to survive. Smoothie is the one getting burst down. And honestly, just a great Sejuani ult there onto Sneaky. Not able to reactively flash, not able to jump away. Mike Young just nails him, and that is really what breaks it open. If you lose just your support there, at most you're probably losing the inhibitor, but with Sneaky going down, that is most of their wave clear, and that meant TSM could potentially end the game. But as we know, C9 barely able to hang on, and the game will continue.
Tristana is one of those champions too, with so many escapes built into the kit, especially the way that she can buffer CC through the rocket jump. It's whenever you do catch her like that, it's one of those moments you can barely believe it. It feels so serendipitous that's just, wait, we actually caught this champion out. You can pull that trigger, you can go for that. And TSM now sitting in a great spot for themselves. Bottom lane inhibitor down.
Definitely in a very good spot, but there are some things, you know, that are making this not as bad as it may otherwise be. You know, Sion, not a heavy split pusher, not someone who's going to be able to threaten the open Nexus. The Titanic Hydra on the Shen and someone who's always going to have global available means LCYR is a really good answer to those bot lane super minions. So they have some ways to kind of hang on and stay in this. We'll see if they can continue to fight back, though. Haunter is tanking it up.
Cloud9 does have some very, very powerful late game carries in the Tristana and the Azir. And I already talked about how Jensen and Sneaky, two of these players that we've seen step up for this team time and again throughout its history, on these champions that now, look at the power spikes they're hitting, Azale. You've got the Nashor's Tooth, the Void Staff, the Seraph's Embrace, and another needlessly large rod on Jensen's Azir. Sneaky has that 3-item power spike plus QSS.
So while I agree there are some very powerful late game carries, do they have the front line and the safety to actually utilize this damage, right? Kha'Zix has not been able to be involved whatsoever in these team fights. Smoothie is hooking people in, but he is the one dying so quickly in these fights. And then you look over on the other side, this massive Sion, this immovable Sejuani, and look at Bjergsen's items. That's 4 items and a death cap. There is no MR on Jensen or Sneaky. If he stacks orbs, just the R will likely kill them from 100 to 0. So your positioning has to be perfect. You do not have the front line to buy you time. Sneaky and Jensen are going to have to play very, very well to be able to keep C9 in this. And Smoothie is going to have to step it up and try to find those key hooks, which are going to be hard to get.
And one of the biggest pain points right now for Cloud9, I mean, you pick this Blitzcrank specifically to make pulls onto those important immobile carries of TSM, but Bjergsen with a Banshee's Veil, there's not a lot of easy ways for this Cloud9 team to pop that, and he feels so fearless. You can see how far forward he positions himself just in Smoothie's face because he knows there's nothing they can do.
And from behind with a Blitzcrank, it gets very tough because you do not have vision control. They see where you're coming from, and if they can see you at the pro level, it's very unlikely you will get that hook because there's 3 members from TSM who can step in front and take that as bodyguards. There is the Banshee's Veil, as you pointed out. So there's essentially 1 target for Smoothie, and there's 4 people standing in front of that target.
Cloud9 still not willing to allow TSM to dictate everything this game. They want to move up, try to make something happen, but it's Mythy. He goes fishing and he catches exactly what he's looking for. Bjergsen goes unstoppable as Sneaky pops the QSS to get himself away. Cloud9, though, having lost their jungler, are once again in an incredibly bad spot. LCYR getting himself taken down now as Bjergsen 6-0-3, 9 out of 10 kill participation on this Syndra, running amok this game.
That was just a terrible teleport from LCYR. He uses the Stand United on Sven, who got caught. He immediately TP's in, but he TP'd into the middle of TSM, gives up his life there as well, plus 2 globals, and this is going to be a Baron, uncontestable for TSM with an exposed Nexus and C9. It's looking grim.
C9 will have their team back in fighting shape for one more fight, but if they lose that fight, if they don't take that fight correctly, it will be game over. TSM comes barreling down the top lane. They've got the Baroned up minion wave. They're 5 men strong. Everybody's got the buff. It's do or die for Cloud9.
And with Banner available too, I don't even know if they can really hold on here. Still having to wait for LCLR. This inhibit is going to be gone very, very quickly, but Jensen is getting some good damage down on the Haunter, which is something working for them.
You want to talk about good damage.
Yeah.
Smoothie nearly got destroyed there from Bjergsen's damage output, what you were talking about with all those high-tier items. Really just showing off what he can do with this champion. Those numbers we saw earlier, 30-7, his historic win rate on Syndra, the man's good.
Yeah, and Svenskeren, nice hook there from Mithy over the wall, finds him and deletes him, and then watch this TP coming into the center of the team there for LCLR. Just shows up like, hello, and you can't do that. You can't do that in a situation where you are behind. That has to be a canceled TP. Yes, it feels bad because Stand United is on cooldown, but
you got to respect it.
You got to respect the position you are in and kind of give up the minimum. LCLR certainly does not do that in this case. I had a little bit of a laugh to myself as Smoothie, after almost getting one shot there by Bjergsen, goes back. He picks up a null magic mantle.
Like,
not sure that's going to fix it, buddy.
I got hit by 2 spells and lost 80% of my health.
Yeah.
We got 25 more magic resistance now.
Hell yeah.
Hell yeah. All right, TSM moving into the Drake pit, looking to get themselves the 3rd Drake of this game. It's been only Oceans so far. 2 Oceans to 1 will be the final elemental count. I mean, we could talk about how Elder Drake's going to be on the board in 6 minutes from now, but if TSM have their way, we won't see that point.
Yeah, C9 need to live those first 6 minutes before they even worry about it. And Smoothie is kind of trying to set up a bit of a play here. He's out of vision. He knows that he is not spotted. He's going to look for some sort of a flank engage type play here. We'll see if they can find it. Svenskeren is behind, and, well, they get the banner at least, so that is something.
They got the banner, but that is about it. Now they've still got to continue.
Oh, there's 2 banners.
Oh no, that's the worst, man.
This.
Feels bad. They tried it, but it didn't quite end up defending everything. Now bottom lane inhib swiftly will be taken down. Smoothie takes some more damage yet again. Looking to go in, find the pulse. Smoothie's already almost dead. LCLR into the back line. Bjergsen's gonna be locked down. This is exactly what they need, but they don't have the damage to do it. Jensen having to use the ult to protect himself. Bjergsen goes godlike. Sven's gonna go on a killing spree, and TSM will lock it down right here. LCLR humbles away, stumbles away humbly, I should say, as now TSM will push right onto that naked Nexus, take down an old rival, and win this game in style.
And what a dominant game from Bjergsen. 7-0-6 on the Syndra, crushing it, finding pick after pick, back-to-back Scatter the Weeks on an invisible Kha'Zix from Bjergsen, finding those picks, and the second one leading to the Baron, which really blew the game wide open there for TSM.
We're talking about TSM. We're talking about how this team looked rocky at the start of the split. Things weren't going the way people expected based on this roster and based on predictions and analysis and any expectable measurable metric. But as the season has gone on, this team has done nothing but ramp up. And now we're getting to the point where they're starting to look like a force to truly be reckoned with.
And it's one of those things, it just starts to feel inevitable. TSM has made every single finals in NALCS history, and it's starting to look again like death taxes in TSM.
That is definitely one way you could word it, as Bjergsen just time and again catching Svenskeren out, setting up these plays for the team, Mithy's hooks, being right where they needed to be, whether it's under the tier 1 turret to go 1-for-1 early on in the game after Cloud9 was ahead, or whether it's later on to facilitate those plays. Even when he gets hooked, he's got the game sense and the knowledge to know we can turn this around. I was really impressed by him this game.
Yeah, definitely so. I really do think it was a team effort there for TSM. You know, Mike Young, deathless, getting involved where he needed to be, you know, not falling behind the Kha'Zix too much in the early stages. And Bjergsen, though, was just so incredible this game. Basically doubling anyone else on his team's damage, 24,600 damage. Next closest is Jensen at 16K.
Well, let's go ahead now, send things down to Avli and Mike Young for a little bit more.
Thanks, guys. Mike, congratulations. 2-0 weekend for TSM. I mean, yesterday, Bjergsen spoke a lot to your improvements over the split. What do you think of your progress?
I think I'm doing great so far, although I'm not so satisfied about the earlier of the split, but I'm just happy that we're winning now.
How would you pinpoint maybe some of those improvements that you've made over the split? Maybe with your play style that you mentioned before, or overall performance?
I think it's just being more comfortable on stage and being more comfortable and following through with my practice. And one little thing that I've been doing is pregame rituals, which really help a lot. Which is like I meditate an hour before the game, and then I think about smashing my opponent about 40 minutes before the game to pump up my adrenaline, and that really helps. And then I just do like little things like wear my hoodie on stage to feel more comfortable, bring my fidget spinner and spin it a little bit, and take off my shoes on stage.
I hope everyone's taking notes because those all sound like keys to success. Now, with all the wins that TSM is bringing in, has there been a change in team atmosphere?
Well, it's always going to be pressure on us because even if we win, even if we like go 2-0 in a week, we're always aiming higher. Like even if we are positive win record, we're saying, why don't we have even better than that? Why don't we crush them even better? Like today, even though we won, there was still one mistake, which is the 4-man dive bottom, which could have been avoided. That was the biggest mistake this game, and like looking back on it, it could have been costly.
Well, you have one more week to prove yourself. Congratulations again on your victory. And for more on the game, let's hear from the analyst desk.
Thank you very much, Avli. TSM really turning it on here in the back half, looking good as they usually do, moving towards the playoff picture. 9-7 now, a big win over C9. Again, these top 6 seem to just be trading wins back and forth, left and right.
Yeah, and one thing this does mean, actually, since Team Liquid and TSM both just won and moved to 9 wins, if COG does win out, that puts them also at 9 wins. So either TSM, if TSM beats Golden Guardians next week, they clinch, and if Team Liquid beats Optic next week, they clinch as well.
Right, so for CLG, Destiny is not in their own hands. It's entirely up to TSM and Team Liquid. Mark, though, when we were watching at least the drafting portion of this game, to some degree, it felt as though the teams were putting in an intense amount of focus or thought into this draft in particular, more so than what we've seen some teams be able to roll right through the picks.
Right, well, I think it's because they ended up with different looks than we're used to seeing. Like Sven playing Ezreal with Braum for Mythy is like what you're used to seeing, but they go with a first pick Varus to split it up because, hey, Sneaky also likes Ezreal, and Varus is generally seen as good into Ezreal, so you can grab this and then go focus more on counterpicking the bot lane, which is what they clearly tried to do to an extent. They ended up having to take that Thresh earlier to make sure that they save counterpick for top side, because that does feel like the strategy behind taking red side for TSM. So felt like both teams put in a lot of prep work for this draft.
Yeah, and I think it's super interesting as well, the fact that the only team to select red side, to opt into red side this week was TSM against Cloud9 in this matchup. And usually that means you want to counterpick top lane, right? So it's like, we were thinking about what is this big reveal that TSM is going to have in top lane? Sion! And it like neutralizes the Shen. And then
it's also kind of funny too because Cloud9 is the other team that in a lot of situations has been the one to elect red side. They didn't have the choice this time around, but against Cloud9, choosing red side.
Well, it felt like a little bit like TSM was attacking an old strategy by C9, because for a while now we've seen Licorice on more standard picks, and it looked like it was going bad.
Was such an amazing stun.
Yeah, that was really good. But it looked like it was going bad for a little while because you saw that huge dive come in that Mike Young was talking about. It's like, oh, well, they're not in their comfort picks, and then there's the Shen top, and then Bjergsen just takes the game over on his own. And he does him to Sven, his old teammate.
Sven got revenge last time they played with some sick counter ganks. This one was definitely Bjergsen's time to shine. Like, TSM, as Mike Young mentioned in the interview, a lot bad could have happened after that first turret goes down, but the Syndra just controlled the game. That moves him to 31-7 on Syndra all time, which is an insane win rate, but you really got to see why here. Like, his stuns don't miss. Even when you can't see the opponent, he knew where Kha'Zix was.
He also had a great early game. Like, he hit 6 before Jensen, chunked him out under turret, was generating pressure for his team, which stalled out some of those early game problems that they were having. And then, yeah, you know, Syndra doesn't roam very well, so it's understandable there's some map plays happening around it. And then C9 go for this kind of desperate last-ditch attempt. They get the submarine Kazakhs in here, trying to deliver the Shen, but at this point, like, Sneaky's not that close. Hanser's grabbing the backside. Smoothie's half dead already. And Bjergsen, with that Seraph shield, it just becomes unkillable.
Yeah, and that is one thing that I think might have made Bjergsen feel more free about picking the Cinder, is going for the Seraph's build on him right now, since typically jumping on top of the Syndra is the Syndra's main weakness, but now he gets that burst of like a 900 health shield later in the game. Came in a pretty big
we
effect
saw
there.
the difficulty there for C9 in terms of getting to the back line and then dealing the damage. Sven able to dodge out a few key abilities, you know, but at that point, you spent all of your time dodging and none of your time actually eliminating the back line of the opposing team, and Syndra can just burst you to death.
Well, there was also some problems with Sven with his build path, too. You're going up against Varus, Syndra, Sion, Sejuani. It's a lot of magic
There's
damage.
a fair amount of AP on that team.
There's no Hex Drinker bot. I understand wanting Duskblade. He doesn't end up building a Hex Drinker, goes Ghostblade as well, which is just so over-indexed into damage with a fed Syndra who, as soon as you pop out of stealth, is just going to ult you and probably kill you through a Shen shield.
Item build one thing, play another. Sven, a couple picks in this game that probably didn't need to happen, akin to some of C9's other losses.
So this one, Bjergsen sees him going into stealth, essentially, and then guesses that he's going to be jumping to the next brush, because that's what Kazakhs does typically, goes from brush to brush while invisible. This is another one where they kind of generally know where they are. See him for half a second, and Bjergsen goes, here. But even with the amazing play from Bjergsen, Sven
why are you
still
there?
putting themselves in pretty difficult situations. It's tricky, though, Mark, because I've seen Kazakhs get away with that.
I was going to say, because I was going to ask.
year.
I was like,
Yeah, you do.
It is a situation where I don't know where to put the blame or, you know, where to give the, you know, kind of the tip of the hat.
The build
because-
is where I would blame it.
Okay.
But I actually don't know if he's in, like, I've seen Kazakhs be in the dumbest spots and get away
Well,
with it.
so that's true, but there's a lot of times that C9's doing it that's costing them games. They literally lost the game against CLG when they were massively ahead because they couldn't get on the same page and they got picked off
Three
over and
different
over.
That was a
people
Kazakh
getting
game,
picked.
too.
That was also a Kazakh game. If you remember the last one, the final pickoff that really cost them the lead that game
Was when he went
was
into that bottom
stealthing
lane
into
brush.
a bottom lane brush, doing Kazakhs things. And it's like, maybe you're not as good at those Kazakhs things as you think you are, and you need to pull back a little bit and work with your team.
Right, yeah, for C9, again, I mean, it's not like they're in any danger here sitting at 11-5, but you do definitely want to be closing out your regular split cleanly, and especially against the teams that you're likely going to be facing in the playoffs. That's, to me, is the bigger token.
Well, especially since first place is up for grabs now. You know,
Great point.
they could have moved ahead there.
Right, we take a look at the standings, and they're entirely tied up with Echo Fox. Of course, Echo Fox does hold that, you know, head-to-head tiebreaker, so C9 would have really liked to have grabbed this win and snagged full possession in first place.
Yeah, 6-1 just scrinched today. Cloud9, Echo Fox, and
Scrunched,
Clutch
I like
Gaming.
that word.
Is that a word?
No,
I don't think it's
scrunched. Scrunched was the word you were going
Pinched,
for, but scrunched is good too.
Scrunched and pinched. Scrunched.
Scrunched.
Yeah. The top 3 teams in the LCS lost today.
Oh my God, they did.
Just when you think you can finally maybe see some, this is why it's so hard
You
to
would
predict.
think day 2, week 8 would maybe be the day that we could be more definitive with our predictions and saying like, yes, this will be the standings going into playoffs. But it's just still so hard to tell. There's enough room to be shuffling around within that top 6.
Yeah, well, there's a lot of playoff matches, and you can feel like some teams are starting to realign their strategies. TL kind of going for that comfort style, picking up a much-needed win. TSM coming online, starting up that juggernaut to inevitably win and represent us at MSI.
And you know, it's a kind of an interesting, probably much longer discussion, but the idea that in the franchise system where teams like TL are saying, hey, we have the freedom now to play a little bit more risky, you know, with our wins and losses throughout the regular season, you know, because we don't have to protect our position in the league. Now it's about making sure that when we get to playoffs, we're going to perform. And so you're seeing some of that maybe here at the end. Team Liquid deciding to go back to comfort. Now they're going to start picking up wins. Teams like C9 and Echo Fox that have played, you know, one way, but been picking up the wins, all of a sudden now feeling a little shaky.
It's setting up playoffs to be really wonky. No one is running into playoffs looking amazing. It could have been CLG, but I feel like now, as long as TSM or Team Liquid win their easy game next week, CLG wouldn't be able to make it. Like, it's going to be really, really, really hard to predict.
All right, we're stepping away. When we return, it's Optic Gaming versus 100 Thieves, so don't touch that browser.
Wait, we called it.
If you have like a really long straw, you can just have it in your mouth at all times and just suck whenever you want some water.
Yeah, that sounds good.
There's you standard knighted onto the context. We're going to make the move. Shurima shuffle onto 2. TSM is in some trouble. Cloud9's making it a double, baby. Even if you're still going to have an overall difficult job, Svenskeren finding himself caught out. Bjergsen just deletes him.
Get a slow. Okay, almost out. Kill Sion first. I warded the legend. Nice. No, he's not dead. Nice.
Is that the name of the game now for TSM is finding some way to make those plays. Bjergsen again, dialing it in and finds Svenskeren.
Look at Blitz.
Okay.
Watch out, Blitz. Counting back. Kill shit. Yeah, Mithy. Camper is here. Look, Trent. Yeah. Trent. Nice call.
Jensen having to use the ult to protect himself. Bjergsen goes godlike. Sven's gonna go on a killing spree, and TSM will lock it down right here.
Play like a pro in City Champs. Earn a spot on your home team and take the fight nationwide in a city versus city battle against some of the best local players from across the country. Online qualifiers begin Sunday, March 11th, with brackets for all skill levels, live gameplay with shoutcasting, and a postseason all-star event hosted by Red Bull. For tickets and more information, go to superleague.com/LOL.